Good morning. Good morning. What is going on, everybody? Wednesday, June 4th, 8 a.m. on the dot. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Cheers to everybody. Hopefully everybody's enjoying their cup of coffee this morning. I'm about half a cup in. Not that far in. I got some work to do. I got some catching up to do. All right, we got a fun show today. We got a lot lined up. Talk, obviously, a lot of NBA. NBA Finals finally starts tomorrow. Got a 2-day delay here. 3-day delay, actually. When's the last time we watched the NBA game? Was it on Saturday? No, it's like a 5-day delay. What am I talking about? That's right. Didn't go Game 7 on a Monday. All for some NBA basketball, so obviously looking forward to get the NBA Finals started. I appreciate you guys hanging out. If you guys have yet to subscribe to the channel, if you can please take a second and subscribe to the channel, I'd greatly appreciate that. Trying to close in on 32,000 subscribers, so it'd be fantastic if I could get you guys to take a couple of seconds here to subscribe. Would greatly appreciate that. All right, I got a quote for everybody, and then we'll continue to move here. So, a quick quote for everybody. Waking up in truth is so much better than living in a lie. Waking up in truth is so much better than living in a lie. Fantastic quote there. That's what I got for everybody today. I know somebody else, as always, will be throwing up a quote up there as well. Somebody will have something. Somebody will be like, hey, Slee, your quote was cool. My quote's a little bit better than yours. All right, let me find a couple of these quotes here. Then we're going to just get into real quick what we got here as far as the show goes. Life ain't nothing. Oh, okay. That's maybe I should read the quote before I actually highlight it. Let's see another one here. The most dangerous poison is the feeling of achievement. The antidote is to every evening think we could be done better tomorrow, or we could have done better tomorrow. Very good quote right there. Very good quote. Seiko is always coming in with some phenomenal quotes here. Last one here, and then we're going to get a quick little rundown. The impossible can always be broken down into possibilities. Okay, so I'm gonna throw out a quick little rundown what we got going on for the show today. Hope everybody's enjoying their Wednesday. Few things we're going to hit on today. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I'll hit on it a little bit. Thibodeau fired from the New York Knicks. I already saw some potential coaching candidates for the New York Knicks. Smart move, dumb move. I think we've looked at the Lakers and we've looked in the past. You could have a coach in Frank Vogel who wins you an NBA championship and the Lakers still move on. We know some of the coaching decisions Lakers have made over the last couple of years, and it's been, kind of been a little bit all over the place. But I think he got the right coach with J.J. Redick. We'll see. Obviously, we'll see when he gets to his second season. But teams that don't have the right coach, man, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. A lot of people thought Thibodeau was the right coach. We'll talk a little bit about that. There were already some names and some rumors out there of who they could potentially replace him with, so we'll spend a little bit of time on that. My guy, Trevor Lane, Lakers Nation, is going to join the show probably within the next 10 minutes or so. He's going to come on. Got a lot of different things I want to talk to Trevor Lane about. Obviously, a lot of Lakers-centric stuff. NBA Finals I want to talk to him about as well. Look at some potential players in the offseason that the Lakers can target. So we'll hit on a number of different things that are more Lakers-centric, but also just kind of NBA-centric as well. Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I keep hearing that name. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. A couple of these guys that cover the Minnesota Timberwolves I started listening to just when the Lakers were playing the Wolves. And they basically all think that he's all but gone. They're just not going to have the money to afford him. And I'm obviously I'm not quoting them here, but they had said something to the effect, the worst thing that can happen is he ends up on a good team in the Western Conference, and obviously the Lakers came up as well. So we'll see what Nickeil Alexander-Walker ends up doing, but that's a name I want to talk about. Nick Claxton, I want to spend a little time. Those are two names, at least of all the names I'm seeing out there around the Lakers. Those are the two names that I probably see the most often. Myles Turner has a thought on super teams. Myles Turner, who's in the NBA Finals, they're going to start tomorrow, has got a thought on maybe this whole super team thing is whatever that concept was in the past. Those days are over. I don't know how much I agree with it. I still think if you find the right three players, you could create a super team and it will make sense. A lot of conversations out there for potentially a trade. of Kevin Durant before the NBA draft. So that's not too far away. So you got a lot of teams that are obviously looking into that. And then the final thing here that I'm going to mention is we'll do Ashley at the end of the show like we always do on Wednesdays. Wednesdays, we do Ashley before this show is all said and done today. We'll wrap up the show with a little bit of Ashley. All right. That's our rundown for today. Gives everyone just kind of a quick idea of what we got going on for the show. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me look at a couple comments here. And let's see what we got here. Let's look at a couple of the comments before we get started. What's over under on Slee's phenomenal today? Also, Brad Wallace, first half or second half of the show, phenomenal. I already broke whatever the phenomenal was. I already broke it on purpose. Now I'm going to do Wallace second half. I'll do him in the second half. I came right in there. I came in there. You want to bet on my show? I'm in here. I mean, I got some stake in the game here. The question I have is, can I earn any money on this bet? All right. Well, let's take a look at a couple comments here before we start. Let's see what we got here. Just want to see if there's any other comments here I want to get to before we get started. A couple things on Walker Kessler. Okay, let's get the show started. Okay, so yesterday we saw the news. You know, it's interesting because it made news. Thibodeau getting fired and Knicks fans. I saw Stephen A. Smith, this is absurd. And everybody just wildly upset. How dare you fire Tom Thibodeau? I think there's a couple different ways to look at it. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it was the news yesterday, not just in the NBA, really around sports yesterday, that Thibodeau got fired. This is one way that I'd look at it. And like I said, there's a couple different ways to look at the firing. One way you could look at it, you could say, wait a minute here, Tom Thibodeau, this is the deepest playoff run the Knicks have had in 25 years, and you fire Tom Thibodeau? Why? Knicks had a good run this year. You guys have heard me say it. My only issue with the Knicks is if you're going to beat the Boston Celtics, you better get to the NBA Finals. You can't beat the Boston Celtics, a team that a lot of people picked to win the NBA championship. You can't beat the Celtics and then lose to the Indiana Pacers. You just can't. And by the way, this isn't even a knock on the Pacers. I think the Pacers have been phenomenal. I talked about how exciting they've been to watch and what a cool product and a team that they've put together. And Tyrese is the man, and Pascal Siakam is just a champ's champ. And we'll see what he's able to do in the NBA Finals. They got a lot of players, the way they drafted Carlisle's aside, all that stuff. Pacers are phenomenal. They're solid. You can't beat the Boston Celtics and lose to the Indiana Pacers. That's what happened to the New York Knicks. And I'm not telling you that that's a fireable offense. What I'm telling you is if everybody picks the Celtics and you beat them, you better get through the Indiana Pacers. They weren't able to do that. I do think that, the question is for the Knicks, and the question is kind of moving forward, well, why'd they fire him? Did they fire him because they don't think they could get any further than they got? Did they fire him because they don't think their head coach, Tom Thibodeau, as far as they got this year, and it's the furthest they've gotten the past 25 years, blah, blah, blah. You want to kind of go through all that list. Did they fire him because they ultimately thought, no, we can do better than this coach? Did they fire him because there could be another coach out there that they're getting the word on that is available and would want to coach the New York Knicks? Yeah, we'd rather have this guy than that guy. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of reasons why they fired him. The president of team president of the Knicks, Leon Rose, said, our organization is focused on winning a championship for our fans. The pursuit led us to the decision to inform Tom Thibodeau. He's not coaching anymore. Ultimately, we made a decision we feel is best for our organization moving forward. And, whatever other gibberish that they usually put out there when they're talking about we wish him the best, all that stuff that happens. Why they fired Tom Thibodeau, I don't know. But I will tell you, I kind of have a little bit of an idea, but I will tell you the overreaction was a little bit funny because I think ultimately they made it sound like Tom Thibodeau was Pat Riley. They made it sound like Tom Thibodeau was Phil Jackson. They made it sound like Tom Thibodeau was Greg Popovich. I'm not telling you that Thibodeau didn't do a good job. I'm not telling you that Tom Thibodeau isn't a good coach. What I'm telling you is relax. It's Tom Thibodeau. It's not the greatest coach that's ever been around. And maybe that kind of shows to how bad the Knicks have been for so long that they finally had a coach that got them this far. And there's a lot of people feeling a certain way about it, that they lost their guy, their coach, who helped them get here. I was listening yesterday to a bunch of different things, and it's interesting to some of the theories. Some theories out there saying, well, wait a minute, maybe, just maybe, if they're going to go make a trade for a Giannis Antetokounmpo or one of these players, maybe there's a different coach that some of these guys would prefer. Okay, maybe we'll see. There was some stuff out there that Jalen Brunson's dad is way too powerful within the organization, was the lead assistant for Tom Thibodeau, and maybe this is their way to get rid of Thibodeau and get rid of Jalen Brunson's dad, because a lot of the players around that New York Knicks team, not that crazy that Jalen Brunson's dad's sitting on the sidelines there. Again, these are just things that I was hearing yesterday when I was listening to Sirius XM, the NBA channel, some other outlets out there. Nonetheless, the Knicks, I saw this morning, there was a couple of quotes out there, or a couple of potential coaches that I saw out there that they're going to go after. The Knicks are expected to show interest in Ime Udoka and Jason Kidd, while Johnny Bryant and Jay Wright are considered presumed candidates. That came from Mark Stein and the Stein line. It's kind of funny. You throw out the names Ime Udoka and Jason Kidd, and then they also say that both of those teams wouldn't even allow a conversation with the Knicks since they're under contract. So it's like, all right, what's the point of that? You started seeing some rumblings today about maybe Michael Malone getting an opportunity to coach the New York Knicks. Obviously, we know he's a champion. We know that's a coach out there that has had a tremendous amount of success. So with all that being said, the only thing that, I'll say in regards to the Knicks job, it's going to be a very, 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 it's going to be a very, very sought after job. At the same time, it's going to come with, the pressure that comes with when you're coaching a big market or a big franchise. And I think there's probably a few coaches out there that can fill in those shoes and do just as good as Tom Thibodeau, or maybe even better. We'll see. We'll see what eventually happens. I don't even really want to make it sound like, I don't even want to make it sound like that I'm kind of going at Tom Thibodeau, that I don't think he's a good coach. I just thought the reaction to me was making it sound like this man won 3 championships in a row. I get it. Furthest that team has gone the last 25 years, so I understand that. So kind of that was definitely the big time moment yesterday. The big time moment yesterday was obviously Tom Thibodeau getting fired. So we'll see what they eventually do. It's interesting with their roster as well, because they got basically 6 guys all their money is tied up to. How they're going to improve their roster. The only thing I really didn't like about the Knicks, to be honest with everybody, is I just that style of play. The dominant point guard that's got the ball in his hands the entire time. The only thing I didn't like, and it sounds like a lot of these players weren't that crazy about it as well, Brunson's got the ball in his hands for basically every possession. There really isn't much ball movement, any of that stuff. So we'll see what eventually happens. All right, let me see what we got here from some of our peeps. Get everybody's let's see what we get. Message got too stale. That's why. Same with Mike Malone. Yeah, could be a good way of putting it. I saw somebody else put here, like Pat Riley said, players get tired or don't listen to the same voice after 5 years. I get it. I think that's a fair assessment as well. Let's see what we got here. Tibbs will go somewhere else. They're doing him a favor. Dolan, a terrible owner. Dolan, a terrible owner, but he's got out of the way over these last 3-4 years or so, and it's really kind of helped the Knicks do whatever they need to do. What a thought, huh? Go hire people that are qualified to go handle their position, and then they can do what they do. Leon Rose has done a good job. The Knicks have done a good job. They're relevant again. The Knicks are actually relevant again. Was the only thing that I wanted to see. Tibbs will get a job. I think he's owed $30 million, something like that. Tibbs is owed $30 million for the remainder of his contract. Tom wears out his players. They fired him because he wouldn't trade Brunson for Bronny. You might be right about that. I mean, I personally think that there's opportunity there with Bronny. They should definitely grab Bronny ASAP. Let's see. Jesus, Slee, haven't watched your show since the Lakers were eliminated. I get it, but come back, join us. It's going to be a very busy month and a half, I'll tell you that, with all the rumors and all the conversations that will go on around the Lakers. The Knicks were down 20 in how many games? Basically every series. Every series they were down. I mean, you can't live that way. They did it against the Boston Celtics and then eventually came back in that series. So I still give the Knicks, I thought it was a pretty successful season. I just kind of hesitate with you can't beat the Boston Celtics and then lose to the Indiana Pacers. You're a team that was built to kind of beat Boston, couldn't do it in the regular season. And then by the time you finally did, you were eliminated by the Indiana Pacers. All right, so that was the big news that went down yesterday. Like I mentioned, our guest today, and I want to welcome in a man that needs no introduction at all. I'm not even going to say his name anymore. Why would I even waste my time doing that? Why do I even have this header that says Trevor Lane of Lakers Nation? It's a waste of time, Trev. It's a waste of time.
You're too kind, Alan. Thank you for having me on the show again, my friend. Happy to talk basketball. I mean, I would say Lakers basketball, but we got finals. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about here. I heard you just talking about Tom Thibodeau getting fired. Crazy world that we're living in the NBA.
It's like you read my mind, because when I started the show, I had mentioned, I was like, listen, there's so many things I want to talk to Trevor about. I want to talk the NBA Finals, get his thoughts a little bit about other stuff going on around the NBA. And then, of course, we're going to hit on the Lakers. Let me start before I get to the NBA Finals, because I've seen you tweet some stuff out about how you're excited about the matchup and just the competition in front of us. I'm with you on that. Before I do, the big news yesterday, obviously Tibbs gets fired, and we've kind of seen it's a unique situation, because I think you can make a case and say, I'd probably make a stronger case of leave Tibbs alone and let him continue to coach and see what the Knicks can build from there. At the same time, I'm not going to pretend like Tom Thibodeau is the best coach in the NBA. He's not Spoelstra. He's not one of these coaches that has won an NBA championship. It's the furthest the Knicks have gone in 25 years. They beat the Boston Celtics. I don't know what your prediction was coming into the playoffs. I thought Celtics were going to win it again. That was my prediction. But then they lose to the Indiana Pacers. What'd you make of the news yesterday? And kind of if you think there's a coach out there that you're like, hey, that would be an interesting coach to end up with the Knicks.
I was surprised. I was very surprised when it happened, because I look at this Knicks team, and I think ultimately there is a mindset that they must have had to land in the spot that they did. And I want to get to that in a second. But I look at this Knicks team conceptually. What were they trying to do with those moves that they made last summer? Getting Karl-Anthony Towns, getting Nickeil Bridges. Why did they do that? Well, they did that because they had proven that the roster, as it had been constructed, a team that just crushed everybody on the offensive glass with Mitchell Robinson, with Isaiah Hartenstein, that team was not capable of beating the Celtics. So the task for the Knicks coming into the season was, we changed up our roster. We have a team that can play 5 out now, that can match the Celtics in that way, and we need to beat Boston. Now, the goalpost moved because they beat Boston. As it turned out, it was the Pacers they had to go through to get to the finals, but they structured their roster so they could hang with the Celtics and beat the Celtics and not suffer the same fate they did the year before, and that's exactly what Tom Thibodeau did. He beat the Celtics. So, a little surprising that you did what you set out to do and he loses his job, right? He did what they wanted him to do, because what happened was suddenly the Knicks beat the Celtics and it became, what now we could go potentially win a championship.
Of course.
And then that sets the bar that much higher, right? And I think that the Knicks must have clearly landed upon the notion that Tom Thibodeau cannot win a championship for them, because otherwise, it would be absolutely insane to take a coach that just did what you set out to do at the start of the season, that just beat the Celtics, and that you are scheduled to pay $30 million to not coach your team now. To make that decision, you must be 100% convinced he is not winning a championship for you. And I also think you damn well better have somebody out there that you already know, we're going to get this guy. We're not moving on from Tibbs to move off into the great unknown. You better know that who you're getting is an upgrade, or at least reasonably believe that there's a significant upgrade if you're going to pay out that kind of money to somebody to not coach your team anymore. So we'll see who the Knicks get, and we'll ultimately find out whether or not they're right or wrong. Look, the Denver Nuggets were criticized for firing Michael Malone with 3 games left in the season. They were proven right. The Nuggets went on a run. We'll see if the same holds true for the Knicks. But I was very surprised that they made that move. They have to have a lot of conviction that Tom Thibodeau is simply not the long-term guy for them anymore.
I like what you said about the goalpost moves, because if I told you that the Knicks beat the Celtics in the playoffs, then we're just all going to assume, well, the Knicks are in the finals then. And if the Knicks are in the finals, then you're not changing your head coach, because you're just not going to change your head coach if you got to the NBA finals. Goalposts did move. And I think, the Indiana Pacers had one of the more amazing playoff runs that I've watched, just some of the comebacks that they had. The game 1 against the Knicks. I mean, a lot of people, if you want to look at how the series was lost, it was lost when 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go, you're up 14 points at home and you can't hold on to the lead. That's probably where the series was lost. If I told you Michael Malone is going to be the next coach of the New York Knicks, would you say, oh, okay, hey, that makes sense? Or is there another name that you think would make I don't even know if you have to, you got to strike higher than that. Michael Malone is a champion head coach. What would you make if he was the head coach?
Well, when I look, I have not looked at, oh, there it is. He is indeed a CAA client. The Knicks and CAA are kind of what the Lakers and Clutch used to be. So that would make some sense to me if that is the direction they wind up going. But then I also go to this, like, is Michael Malone a clearly better coach than Tom Thibodeau? I mean, he's won a championship, and so you certainly check that box for him. But I don't know. But I could see it. A CAA guy, it would make some sense in that regard. There's been some reporting out of New York that it's not going to be him, but we'll see. There was also reporting literally the day before yesterday that Tom Thibodeau was safe, and the next day he gets fired. So you just never know. But it would make some sense, being that he's a CAA guy. He's one of the bigger names that's out there. He has won a championship, and the Knicks could sell it on. This dude has been to the top of the mountain, and we need that. We need somebody who knows these waters, who knows how to sail that path, and that's who we're going to put at the helm. So it would make some sense to me, but I'm not 100% convinced that Michael Malone's a better coach than Tom Thibodeau. Maybe the Knicks believe that. We'll see.
Tomorrow, the NBA Finals are going to start. Obviously, the Oklahoma City Thunder taking on the Indiana Pacers. It's interesting, kind of some of the conversation around this finals. I think some people will say, oh my gosh, it's going to be a crater for the ratings, and there really isn't that much interest. And if it's not LeBron and Steph, and you got to kind of go through some of the names that we got accustomed to seeing in the NBA Finals. I'm an NBA fan, and I know you are. And I know that you and I are watching NBA basketball, and a lot of times, yes, star power is great. Franchises that have the allure, I get it, completely understand it. Oklahoma City Thunder and the Indiana Pacers play good basketball. Stylistically, they're different. They're wildly young. Their stars are not maybe as well known internationally, but if you're a fan of the NBA, you probably enjoy watching Tyrese Halliburton, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Pascal Siakam, kind of go down the list. What do you make of the matchup, and maybe just kind of a little bit of a prediction from your perspective of what you think we're going to be watching over this next week and a half or so?
Yeah, so I hope my prediction is wrong. Let me preface everything by that. But I've got the Thunder winning this in 5. I think the gap between the Thunder's offense and the Pacers being the better offensive team, the gap between the Pacers and Thunder on the offensive end is not nearly as big as the gap between the Thunder and the Pacers on the defensive end. And that's not me saying the Pacers are a bad defense. They're not. They've actually been really good over the course of the playoffs. That's me saying the Thunder are great. The Thunder are the best defense that we've seen in a number of years in the NBA. I do think there's potential, though, for this to be an exciting series. Look, we saw it in the Denver series where the Thunder had some nervy moments in the fourth quarter. We saw the Denver Nuggets come back, and I believe it was game 1 that they stole. Aaron Gordon hit some big shots.
That's right.
So we've seen that in the Thunder's DNA, that they have moments where things can get a little bit wonky. They can let go of the rope a little bit. And those are the moments where Indiana my goodness, Alan, they go, superstar mode. They get the superstar in Super Mario Brothers and they become invincible and they're just hitting everything and getting stops and all that. Those are moments where they are going to test how steady of a team you really are. I think there are moments where the Pacers will test the Thunder. They will make them start thinking. They will make them start wondering, are we going to give this away? And you'll see some nervous moments for the Thunder. That's what I'm hoping happens, because I want to see this go 6. I want to see this go 7. But I do think the most likely outcome is Thunder in 5. If Indiana is going to extend this and make this a long series, they're going to have to execute extremely well on the offensive end in the fourth quarter. Ultimately, I believe the more likely thing to happen is the Thunder's defense will be stingy enough to where the Pacers are not able to go on their crazy runs. But again, I hope to see it, because you get people say, it's two small market teams, it's poor ratings, it's this, that, and the other. Look, I'm going to let Adam Silver worry about the ratings. These are two very good basketball teams. And when we look at what people want exciting moments. They want crazy comebacks. Well, that's the Pacers. They've already had 3 comebacks in the playoffs that we would have said could never, ever happen, that are impossible. And they've done it 3 times already. So that makes them, in and of itself, an exciting and very dangerous team. In addition to, I think they're a great problem solver in the half court with what defenses throw at them. I love what the Pacers do on that end. And then for the Thunder, all the people out there saying, the NBA is not physical anymore. Nobody's allowed to play defense anymore. Well, I give you the Thunder, who are playing defense at an incredible level, and people just complain about them. Oh, no, they get away with too much. All right, so we want them to be more physical and play more defense, just not like that, right? We're constantly complaining about stuff. So I think these are 2 very good teams that I'm really excited to watch. I think where the ratings will suffer is with the casual fans. And look, because there isn't that bright, shiny star that they're going to flock to in this series. And so I do think the ratings will suffer. But if you love basketball, you're going to really enjoy this series. I think it's going to be a hell of a chess match. Rick Carlisle's getting a lot of credit. He's an incredible coach. Mark Daigneault is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I can't wait for this. I'm fired up for this series, and I hope my prediction is wrong, Alan.
Yeah, and by the way, I love what you said, too. I hope it's a long series, too, so that there are people that say through 4 games, hypothetically, hey, it's 2-2. And now all of a sudden you could have people that, like you just mentioned, maybe are the more casual fans that didn't tune into game 1 and game 2 like you and I may have, or people in this chat, which I know are all NBA fans. I think there's a little bit of, can they prove people wrong just merely by, hey, this was a good series, it's competitive? I'm not 100%. Even if I think OKC's got the edge, it doesn't guarantee them a victory every single night. So I think it should be fun to watch. And listen, I like what you said, too, about the Pacers. They have been extraordinary so far in the playoffs. They've been wildly exciting. They've come back in games where you're like, mathematically, is that even possible? They did it from the opening round against the Bucks. They did it against the Cavs. They did it against the Knicks. We'll see if they could, obviously continue to make that happen as well. I saw something, get your opinion on this, and then I kind of want to shift to the Lakers and some of these other teams in the NBA as well. I saw Myles Turner have a quote out there. I think the years of super teams and stacking, it was not as effective as it once was. Basically said that the way the OKC Thunder built and the way the Indiana Pacers are built right now is kind of will be the new trend of the NBA. I think there's always times in the league where you're like, yep, this is the strategy. This is how you do it. There's other times in the league where it's going to look different. That blueprint is always evolving. Where are you? And I think we could tie this back to the Lakers to be successful in today's NBA. What is that blueprint? And how far are the Lakers away from trying to create something that is a similar model?
Yeah, I do think that super teams are dead. They were killed by 2 things. They were killed by the ever-increasing accuracy from the three-point line, which has made it so that defenses, you really can't have any weaknesses out there on the floor. You can't have 3 stars and then just a couple of guys out there. You have to have guys who legitimately fit together and play well together. You also have to have depth, and I thought that was one of the problems that the Lakers had. But it was also killed by the CBA, the new collective bargaining agreement, that's made it so that if you do put together a super team, you are so restricted from building out any kind of depth around your big three type super team model. You're so restricted after that it makes it very, very difficult to win with three players. And certainly we saw it with the Phoenix Suns. If you have three players that you're paying max money to, and those three pieces don't fit perfectly,
sure,
you're dead in the water. There's not much that you're going to be able to do. So I do agree with the premise that the super team era is over. And Alan, I think we could look at that and say that's for better or worse, right? I mean, look, people say, well, dynasties are dead and all that. We're now 7 straight seasons of a new champion and everything. Dynasties and these super teams, these powerhouses, they brought in eyeballs, they brought in ratings. So this is the way, parity is the way the NBA has made the conscious choice to move towards. And we'll find out if they're right or wrong to do that. But we shouldn't just dismiss out of hand the idea of having super teams, because they do attract eyeballs. They do attract casual fans. They do bring in the ratings. We've seen that historically. So it's not a given that this direction the NBA is moving in is a positive move for the NBA. But nonetheless, it's more of an NFL style. They want everybody to feel like their team is at least on the rise or has a shot. They don't want the Sacramento Kings missing the playoffs for 17 straight seasons and those fans just feeling down in the dumps and like they can never really fall in love with their team. And they also don't want any team just sitting at the top for too long. And that's evidenced by what the Boston Celtics are going to have to do this summer with breaking up some of this team. We saw Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, the Denver Nuggets had to leave.
That's right.
Had to let him leave. Klay Thompson with the Warriors, Paul George with the Clippers, and so on. And so this is not just the way the game is being played, but also the cap reality that the CBA has created here. As far as what this all means for the Lakers and the way they build their team, and this is true for everybody in the NBA now, it's that if you are going to build any kind of sustainable success, you have to have draft capital. You have to have young players coming in that can fill those spots, because what happens is as teams succeed, as they win, it's going to happen with the Thunder too. As they win, guys are going to start getting paid. Those role players that have success, they're going to start getting paid. And at some point, you're going to hit a level where you're crossing that second tier apron. You can't stay across that mark for too many years. You're going to have to drop back down. You're going to have to let some of your guys go. And you'd better have young players ready to step in. Think about Christian Brown with the Denver Nuggets, young players who are ready to step into that bigger role and be able to fill that spot. So draft capital, I think, is more important than ever before. Building around young talent, building chemistry, building cohesiveness, because gone are the days where you can just add talent, and you're just going to have such a talent discrepancy between yourself and your opponent that you're going to win, even if your chemistry, your connectiveness is not where it needs to be. Now, the difference between the top seeds and the bottom seeds, it's getting slimmer. Right? It's getting slimmer. Everything is getting compressed here as we're seeing more and more parity around the NBA, which means chemistry, cohesiveness, developing players, all these sorts of things are more important than ever before. And those are things that the Thunder have done. Those are things that the Pacers have done. And I do think that is, to a degree, the model for the future. It's also a little bit of a blend of the model the Lakers really pioneered it with the 2020 championship team and then went away from. It's that mixed with the new cap reality. 2 stars, role players that all fit, and then mixed with the new cap reality that we've got where you have to have this constant influx of young talent. That's the way of the future of the NBA. I'm sorry that was such a long-winded answer.
No.
But I've thought a lot about this and the way the NBA, the direction the NBA is going. For the Lakers, it'll be a challenge getting towards this model, and it's going to require they're going to have to bat 1,000 because they don't have a lot of draft capital to fall back on.
I think it's complicated, which I think that's why, you're and not surprised at all that you've obviously given this a lot of thought and kind of how it ties back to the Lakers. But I think the only thing structurally that I'm not crazy about, I don't mind if you tell me that there's 10 different teams that got a shot every single year of potentially winning an NBA championship. I think that's good for the league. I do. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying that, hey, if you have these dynasties, we've looked at dynasties and sees what that does to ratings. The more you have a team that everybody hates, you're going to get the hate watch. Plus, you're going to get, I'm rooting for the team to beat the team that I don't like. We know what that can do for a sport. The only thing I don't like of the structure of the NBA and kind of how they've done it is they don't reward teams for drafting well. Mm-hmm. They don't reward teams for The Thunder, you said, is a perfect example. Eventually, they're going to have to pay Jalen Williams. Eventually, they're going to have to pay Chad Holmgren. And now, all of a sudden, you're going to have to look at other guys on your roster, and you're going to have to say, well, we got to get rid of some of the players that we've developed, or we have to make decisions on which players we're going to keep. Why should the Oklahoma City Thunder, why should they – reprimanded it's not the right word. Why do they get penalized for doing what the NBA is asking them to do by drafting, developing, and then all of a sudden you have all-stars that you cropped? I know Shea is a different story, but that's the only piece of this that I don't like. You can have your cap, you can have the second apron, but you should also reward teams that did a really, really good job of identifying players and developing players. And I think that's the one area that I'm still a little lost on. I feel like the NBA is talking two sides out of their mouth here. There should be something implemented that if the Lakers went out and drafted players and developed them along with the stars that they have, they shouldn't have now be penalized for kind of growing organically. I know Lakers aren't a good example because growing organically doesn't really exactly happen, but I think some teams are going to be penalized that did it the way the NBA is asking them to do it.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And I've seen people float the idea of, well, could you make it where if you draft a player, I've seen people say that player's salary doesn't count at all against the cap. I think that's going too far, but could you have, I don't know, 50%, if you drafted the player on their second contract, 50% of their cap salary counts against the cap or something like that, some type of benefit to having that player so that you don't wind up in a situation where you're effectively penalized for drafting well and developing players. The counter would be, well, how much of the draft is a crapshoot? How much of it is luck? I mean, the Thunder have had so much volume of picks. Like, we forget they traded away Alperen Sengun. Like, imagine if they had him. They traded away like a Brandon Clark who's with the Memphis Grizzlies now, right? They've traded some quality players away too. They've just had such a high volume of draft capital that they've managed to overwhelm with that. And part of that was the brilliant Paul George trade that they made, and that paid off. They got Jalen Williams out of that. They got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. You got an MVP and an all-star for Paul George, one of the best trades I think we've seen in NBA history. But I think the counter would be, well, if you are, let's say you're the Atlanta Hawks, and on one hand, you were lucky and you won the lottery, but you were unlucky in that you won the lottery the year after Wemby and the year before Cooper Flag. Like, unfortunate, because Zach Reaves-Sachet, he's not the number one pick. He's probably not a top 5 pick in this year's draft class. And so the advantage is not going to be the same depending on which year that you actually manage to hit upon a player. How much of it is you take a flyer on a guy, that guy happens to hit, and maybe you could argue that should be rewarded. But I think the NBA ultimately needs to do something to make it a little easier to keep a team together. But again, from the big picture, their goal is nobody's at the top for too long and nobody's at the bottom for too long. And you can see it in the way that they've structured everything. And the way to do that is to make these penalties in there more and more penalizing, I suppose, more painful as you add more salary to your roster. And this is part of this too, is it's about protecting the league, shielding the league from Steve Ballmer, from the Warriors, from Larry Ellison, from these owners that have so much more money than other teams, that if you try to hit their pocketbook, they're not even going to feel it. They're impervious. Ballmer has infinity money. So you have to attack their ability to actually build out their roster. And that's what's actually, been successful so far anyway, out of the new CBA. So I do agree, though, it is a little frustrating if you're a team and you've drafted and you've developed well, and then you have to watch a player walk away simply because of the new reality. But from the NBA perspective, it's about creating that life cycle of a team and making sure that everybody feels like their team isn't that far off from making a real run.
Yesterday, Bobby Marks of ESPN was on, and I'm going to use the exact words that he used. He said that the Lakers expect the Lakers to be extremely aggressive this offseason. What does extremely aggressive? What is, if I said, what's that definition to you for the Lakers? What do you make of extremely aggressive? What kind of vision would that look like, that by the time we're sitting here in a couple of months, what should extremely aggressive look like to you?
Extremely aggressive means they've added multiple pieces here. They are not sitting where they were in August of last year, where Lakers fans were, myself included, were in disbelief that they had chosen to sit out the offseason effectively. Now, the Lakers have been patient historically with they didn't feel like the right move was available. They've waited into the season. I think extremely aggressive means that's not going to be the Lakers this year. Means this Lakers team, Rob Pelinka, they've heard Luka say, yes, I want to stay with the Lakers. They're not going to take that for granted. They don't want to show up empty-handed on August 2nd when Luka can officially sign an extension with the Lakers. They want to present that extension to him and say, Luka, here's your extension, and you're going to be throwing lobs to this guy that we went out and got, and this guy is going to be with you, and this guy. We added these pieces. We have a team that's ready to roll, that's built around you, around your timeline. Sign right here. That's what extremely aggressive is going to mean. They add pieces that are going to fit with Luka's timeline to make Luka feel all warm and fuzzy about signing that contract extension with the Lakers. So I look at the backbone of that Mark Williams trade, and I think that is the starting point for all of these different trade discussions the Lakers are going to have, whether it's for a big or otherwise. It's Dalton Connect, it's expiring salary, it's future draft capital, and we'll see what Rob Pelinka can get done with that. Now, they have a very finite amount of resources to use to actually swing these trades. They do have a decent amount of expiring contracts. When we take a look at Rui Hachimura at $18 million, Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber at $11 million and $11.5 million, you've got expiring money you can potentially move. I expect multiple moves from the Lakers this year. That $5.6 million taxpayer mid-level exception, they're going to use that on somebody. And so I think that extremely aggressive means we're going to see them get, and I hope they do it, they're going to get not a guy, but the guy for the center position long-term. If that fails, that's where maybe you use that $5.6 million mid-level exception, taxpayer mid-level, on like a Clint Capella, Brooke Lopez, somebody like that you could at least tell Luka, hey, we've got somebody to be at the position for the time being. But I think for the Lakers, extremely aggressive means they go get whoever they think is the long-term fit. Luka, this is going to be your lob partner for the next 5 years. Getting that guy is, I think, what extremely aggressive is going to look like.
Trev, you think they can do that without? Can they do that with the pieces they have without giving up Austin Reaves? Can you get the guy the guy that you're describing, that when you get to August 2nd and you're sitting in front of Luka, it's interesting with Luka because I think there's two angles on this. I don't know how you felt, but I thought once the Lakers got Luka Doncic, I didn't really think there was going to be a lot of tension towards Luka, as in, hey, if things didn't work out, Luka, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Are you in shape? Are you not in shape? I think the way that roster was constructed, there were a lot of people being a lot more critical towards Luka during the season or during the playoffs, fair or unfair, that you're right. I think Luka is going to look at that roster and say, and I expect him to stay with the Lakers, but I think he is going to say, listen, I'm going to get more and more pressure on me, especially if you guys don't figure out how to make this roster whole. And I think everybody understands that the roster isn't whole, but to get a player that you think is going to be with Luka for X amount of years, can you do that with the pieces they have without giving up Austin Reaves?
I think so. I think the challenge with that for Rob, and maybe he's going to have to take some more opposing GMs out for coffee, I don't know, but the challenge for Rob is he showed his hand. He showed exactly what he was willing to give up to get their big of the future and what they thought they were getting in Mark Williams. So teams know that's the starting point, and teams also recognize how desperate the Lakers are to get a big, and so they're going to try to drive the price up. Fortunately, I think the market, there's a decent number of bigs that are going to be available. There's a few stopgap options that are out there in free agency as well. I think if the Lakers suddenly have the starting center job open to free agents, they're not able to get the guy on the trade market, they become the most attractive landing spot for any of these veteran bigs. So I do think that Rob's not in the worst position negotiating wise, but he has already showed his hand. I do think they can get somebody, though. I think they can get that guy. Finding somebody, though, that can be a lob threat, that can be a rim protector as well. It's not going to be necessarily an easy task, but I think they'll be able to get that done without including Austin Reaves. Now, of course, if you want to get into like Jaren Jackson Jr., Bam Adebayo, and I'm not saying the Lakers can't get these guys, but you got to be willing to part with Austin Reaves to get to that level. But when we're talking like the Nick Claxtons of the world, if it's you go back to the Mavs and you're talking Daniel Gafford or someone along those lines. I don't even know if Walker Kessler is a thing. Anybody sounds like he's probably not. But if we're talking like Mitchell Robinson with the Knicks, we're talking Goga Bitadze with the Orlando Magic, any of these kind of guys, you should be able to get a player of that caliber without including Austin Reaves. I'll tell you, I know the Lakers would not include Austin Reaves to get any of those guys. So I think they can accomplish it without moving Reaves, as long as they're not trying to get that like all-star tier big man.
There's levels. Yeah. And that's the best way to put it. And I think, I did a video, I think it was last week, where I'm like, listen, I heard the names, Jared Allen, Nick Claxton, you mentioned Gafford. Cool. All those players sound like they'd be great fits for the Lakers. I'm not giving up Austin Reaves, basically the biggest trade piece that I have for one of those guys. Now, if you start talking about different types of players that, like you mentioned, the Bam Adebayos, Jaren Jackson Jr., and again, we don't know if these guys would even be available, then that's a different conversation. That's a real conversation that you understand, what would be at stake if you want to get that caliber of a player. What do you make of Nickeil Alexander-Walker? And I'm asking specifically him because that's a name that, we were talking about how certain teams are going to have to make decisions and get rid of certain guys and then rely on some of their younger players that they just drafted to kind of work through the system. That's probably going to happen in Minnesota. They'll probably pay Julius Randle. I'm sure Naz Reid they want. I think Nickeil Alexander-Walker could potentially become available because of that. And there'll be a few teams that have interest in him. What do you think of him as an option for the Lakers? And I know that's not that's not a center, but that is somebody that certainly the Lakers can use from a wing perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, like when you look at, Chris Finch, the coach of the Wolves, has already said that he thinks they're going to bring all these guys back. They're going to figure it out. That's what he's supposed to say, though. Looking at the math, it's going to be very, very difficult for the Wolves to keep all three of them and not be a second apron team. And most teams do act as though that second apron, even if it's not actually triggered as a hard cap, they act as though it is a de facto hard cap. They do not want to pass that line, and rightfully so. So I think the Wolves have some tough decisions coming here. For Nickeil Alexander-Walker to the Lakers, it makes a lot of sense, particularly if, let's say you are able to, let's just throw out the name Nick Claxton. Let's say they decide Nick Claxton is their guy for the future. All right, you give up, Gabe, Maxi Kleber, I don't know, maybe it's a Rui-based deal, whatever, expiring money. You get Nick Claxton. It's probably Dalton Connect, draft capital, whatever it is to get him. You go get him via trade. All right, now you've checked that center box via trade. Now that $5.6 million taxpayer mid-level exception that the Lakers will likely have access to, that becomes your main weapon in now adding somebody via free agency. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker would be a phenomenal target. The challenge being that there's already rumors out there about teams that may be willing to give up a full mid-level, that $14.1 million. And if that's the case, we're talking about nearly 3 times what the Lakers can pay, that they're not going to be able to get into the mix. But, Alan, there's a lot of teams that are now going to that have access to the full mid-level that are not going to spend it, because now you can use the mid-level exception under the new CBA as a trade exception. So they have reason to hold on to it, go into the season with that mid-level exception and say, we're going to use this at the trade deadline to absorb a contract. So I don't think the sheer number of teams that have access to the full mid-level necessarily means the Lakers are going to get outbid, as my studio Stu makes his presence felt here. He's coming in here to hang out. But I don't think that necessarily means the Lakers aren't going to get anybody. But I think if anybody does come along, the Orlando Magic have already been mentioned as a team that might do it. If anybody offers him that $14.1 million, that's it. I think the Lakers are out. If Nickeil Alexander-Walker doesn't get that offer, though, he makes a lot of sense for the Lakers, as long as they have already checked that box of finding a center. And that would be, I think, a hell of an offseason if you get, it's a Nick Claxton or whoever, Jakob Poeltl, whoever we want to say it is at the 5, plus Alexander-Walker with your mid-level, your taxpayer mid-level. That would be a really solid offseason, I think, for the Lakers. I like him a lot as a target, a guy who can defend multiple positions, knock down the 3. I think that would be a great result for the Lakers if they could get him. But we'll see. I could see a team talking themselves into going full mid-level for him.
Final one for you, brother, and I appreciate it. Stu, thank you for making a quick appearance as well on the mic here. We've heard the Giannis chatter. We've heard the Kevin Durant chatter. Tell me a team you don't want to see Giannis go to and a team you don't want to see Kevin Durant go to. And
it's the same team. It's the Spurs. It's the Spurs.
Doesn't it feel like I saw something this morning that there's some mutual interest between and the Spurs maybe not wanting to give up all this capital for Giannis. They feel like, okay, maybe we get a guy like Kevin Durant and go from there. Doesn't feel like something's going to happen with the San Antonio Spurs with all these assets that they have. But go ahead.
They're going to get somebody. I think they're going to get somebody, and they're going to be real tough. I think we're looking at a Western Conference next year where 13 or maybe even 14 teams are playoff quality teams and only 8 make it. Like, it's going to be absolutely insane. Maybe injuries destroy some seat like they did with New Orleans last year. But
it happens every year.
It happens. But the West is going to be absolutely brutal. It's gotten worse every single year. And if Giannis goes to the Spurs, if KD winds up going to the Spurs, you've got another team that's very clearly playoff caliber at that point. So I do think that it's the Spurs that, from the perspective of another Western Conference team, you'd prefer to see not have that team get better because it's already so crowded as it is. You prefer to see those guys go east. And I do wonder if at some point stars start looking over at the Eastern Conference and go, man, there's nobody left over there. Let me go to an East team. This is a much easier path. But that would be the team that I'd be trying to keep away from. I guess if the Thunder lost in the finals, maybe they could make a dramatic move like that. The Rockets are another team, I think, that could get significantly better if they landed Kevin Durant. The bottom line is the West is going to be absolutely brutal. And go East, players. Just find an East team and go there, please. It's way too crowded in the Western Conference, and it looks like it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, that's the argument, right? The only argument, and we saw earlier in the week that there could be some mutual interest between Giannis and the Toronto Raptors. I'm with you. Every time I see any of these teams or any of these players that are associated with some kind of a trade, especially Giannis and Kevin Durant, because I do think, obviously, we know the type of impact those two players can have, specifically Giannis. I'm with you. Every time I look at it, I'm like, damn, the East it feels like it's wide open. Tatum's going to be out for probably all of next season. We'll see what happens. Do you really want to come to the West where the 10th best team is going to be a headache as well? And it never really always plays out that way, but it looks like, obviously all the competition is clearly stacked in the Western Conference. All right, brother. Okay, so what's how hectic is this next 45 days coming here with all the chatter and the conversation and all the rumors? I feel like you never stop. I feel like you're always live. I feel like your life is a live stream.
just about. No, I did get in a little vacation last week. I just got back a couple days ago, so that was nice to get away a little bit. But yeah, I mean, look, this is going to be the sprint here all the way through the NBA draft, and then through the first few weeks of July, we'll have Summer League coming up as well. So all the way through mid-July, it is crazy around the NBA. Sometimes even to the end of July. I'll tell you what, Alan, too, if the Giannis thing, if we find out that he's on the trade market and that doesn't get resolved quickly, that has the potential to push everything back as everybody waits for a Giannis resolution. But I think it's going to be a very hectic. We're hearing executives from all over the league predict that this is going to be a crazy offseason on the trade front. So I'm excited for what's to come, but it's going to be an extremely busy next 6-7 weeks or so around the NBA. So I'm expected to be live streaming quite a bit, throwing out a lot of shows, a lot of content, all that kind of stuff. But we love it. I can't complain. We get to talk about this stuff. We get to talk about the NBA sports all the time. I absolutely love it. So I'm far from complaining here. Let's go. Let's fire up a crazy and chaotic NBA offseason.
Enjoy the NBA Finals. I know you and I will be connecting soon. We always seem to connect every couple of weeks or so. Trev, I appreciate the time, brother. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for your insight.
Hey, thank you for having me, Alan. Always a lot of fun to talk sports with you.
All right, that's Trevor Lane right there. Great stuff from Trev. That's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot going on. I saw one of the things that I saw that I think for me personally, where I don't want to see Kevin Durant go, where I don't want to see Giannis go, and you guys can chime in on this as well. What he said again about the San Antonio Spurs, I still think Houston's going to be a headache. I still think Houston's a problem. If Houston found a way to get Kevin Durant and you got the right coach and the right system and KD could just be KD, I think that would be a headache. The Spurs are going to be a headache no matter what. And the fact that they got the number 2 pick in the draft, obviously, is like that's even more of a migraine and what they're going to be able to use with those specific picks. But there's a lot to kind of unpack there with Trev. And Trev's one of the best in the business, so I'm glad I was able to get him on and we could talk a little bit about it. Okay, a couple things here. And I'll read some of the comments here in just a second. We still got Ashley that I want to get into, but just a couple things here to follow up on what he was talking about. So the piece on Nickeil Alexander-Walker that I was hitting on, I mentioned yesterday, I was listening to a Timberwolves show, and they're basically saying, like, there isn't really a path to keep Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Tim Conley and the president of the Minnesota, everybody can say, hey, we've seen Kumbaya. Everybody loves each other. These guys are going to try to get paid. I know we saw this. This was a couple days ago. Bovado had the Lakers with the highest odds to get Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Just keep an eye out for him. I mentioned yesterday, keep an eye out for some of these Minnesota Timberwolves players, because I do think that they're going to have to take a path to get under the second apron. They got some other young players that are much cheaper that I don't think they're going to pay. So we'll see what happens in regards to him. I think the Nick Claxton conversation, I mean, how many different times have you heard Nick Claxton's name come up so far in the summer? There are certain levels to this, and you could look at certain players that are available in the market or could be available in the market. If the Lakers are going to make a run at Nick Claxton or a Daniel Gafford or a Jared Allen, cool, awesome. You can really, really fill a void that the Lakers desperately need. But the trade assets that you give up to get these guys, they just got to be wise trade assets that you give up. If you got to overpay a little bit because you don't have a choice, this is the position that you're in, you had to give up what you gave up to go get Luka. You got to make sure he's happy by the time August 1st rolls around, August 2nd, when he could sign his extension. Then you do what you got to do. But the chat, I really love what Trevor said about the caliber of guard that I said, hey, can you really get a player that you think is going to be with the Lakers for 4 or 5 years and not give up Austin Reaves? And he said that really the guys that you're thinking of, if you're giving up a player like Austin Reaves, it has to be the caliber of a player that you think is either a fringe all-star or somebody that you just know is going to be the perfect fit for the Lakers for years to come. And if that trade doesn't present itself, then you keep Austin Reaves. I mean, just simple as that. Keep him. And then if you got to re-sign him and pay him $30 million a year, then re-sign him and pay him $30 million a year, and then figure out what to do after that. So, the last thing you want to see is Austin Reaves walk, but you also don't want to see Austin Reaves in a trade where you're looking back and saying, why the hell would the Lakers trade Austin Reaves for this caliber of player? And I don't think the Lakers are going to do that. We've heard Dave McMenamin talk about that. He was on the show earlier in the week. Dan Weike, I've seen a tweet from him or an article from him in the LA Times of, yeah, the guy's not untouchable, but it's going to take a significant player if the Lakers are going to part ways with him. Okay, the last thing I want to get into before I start looking at some of your comments and then we go from there, the thing about Durant to the Spurs, people in Kevin Durant's camp are eyeing San Antonio as a landing spot. This came from somebody in Arizona that I think is a radio host in Arizona. So that's somebody that came from there. I also saw an article last night or either this morning that talked about expect if Kevin Durant is going to get moved, probably before the NBA draft, he would get moved. So I really think, at the end of the day, you can just kind of see there's a lot of movement that's going to happen in the NBA. Big time players are probably going to get moved as well. Whether that was Shams talking about the offseason, I've mentioned Rob Pelinka during the exit interview talking about how there's probably going to be a lot of movement in the NBA. So I don't think this is going to be one of those off seasons where we're all just kind of sitting around and saying, hey, is anybody going to do anything? I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be, clearly a lot of movement as well. I did mention the last thing I saw here, Bucks superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo remains a target for the Houston Rockets. Giannis Antetokounmpo remains a target for Houston. That was basically one of the other things that I got yesterday. So there's a lot of jerseys here that you could be putting Giannis Antetokounmpo's name on based on the amount of teams that have interest in him. But, obviously it takes two to tango. A lot of this is also going to depend on what the Milwaukee Bucks want to do as well. Okay, let me look at some of the comments here, and then we could start going in from that perspective. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here. Trying to find some comments here. People going back to the Kobe and Shaq days. By the way, I think today is the anniversary of the Kobe lob to Shaq. Kobe to Shaq over the Portland Trail Blazers. That was the first time in my life I'm like, I think Lakers are going to win an NBA championship. I didn't grow up in the Showtime era, so I didn't see any of the championships there. I started watching Lakers basketball really towards the end of Magic's career when it was, Kareem had already retired. But I'm more the era of Nick Van Exel and Eddie Jones, some of these guys. Kobe to Shaq was, I don't know how many years ago today. Let's see, that was in 2000. Yeah, so 25 years ago today. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what we got here for some of the comments. Let's see. The money is all right. Wow, y'all overvalue Austin, Rui, and do our Lakers best trade chips. I don't think you overvalue Austin. I think Austin's got a lot of value in the NBA. And I think a lot of his value also has to do with the fact that he's on such a manageable contract. And then I think eventually that manageable contract is going to go away and it's going to come back to market value. So that's just the best way to put it. Eventually it will come to market value. And when it does, then Austin Reaves' value will still be valuable, not as valuable. So something to keep in mind there. Okay, on Wednesdays, we do Ask Slee. If you guys got some questions you guys want to throw my way, throw them my way. Could be about anything. If you guys are not familiar with Ask Slee is very simple. We just throw any question out there. I got some people asking questions about movies. I got people asking questions about food. I got people asking questions about anything. So Ask Slee is what we do on Wednesdays. If you got some Ask Slees, throw them in there right now, and then I could at least read a few of these before we get to the end of the show. Like I mentioned, shout out to Trevor Lane for the time, and shout out to everybody that's in here and active on the chat as well. I appreciate you guys doing that. As you guys get a couple Ask Slees ready for me, I'm going to give some love to one of our partners here, to Brad Wallace of the Wallace Firm. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Shout out to his partnership on the channel. If you need an injury attorney, I'm telling you, there's only one in the business that you should go to, and it's Brad Wallace and his team over at the Wallace Firm. I hope you never need an injury attorney. I hope there isn't a serious injury or a wrongful death or a family member that's involved in something where you really, really need the backing of an injury attorney. But things happen in life, and there's nothing that I think you and I can do to avoid that. Things will happen in life, and if you find yourself, you're somewhere in the state of California and you're looking for representation, I do have somebody for you. And I can make a personal introduction to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm if that is needed. We also created a URL, wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. If you go to that website, you can get a free consultation and at least let them have a conversation with you. Let them try to see if they can help you. Let them give you a little bit of a game plan. Again, if you're in a specific situation, let them see if they can assist you. So there's no money up front or anything like that. It's a free consultation. He can help anybody in the state of California. And he's a personal friend of mine that is supporting the channel. So again, if you find yourself in a predicament or a situation, I'm sure it's daunting, intimidating, the whole thing. See, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm can help you. So shout out to him and his partnership. All right, here we go. Here. Let's see if we got a couple Ask Slees here. And if we don't, that's okay. That's okay as well. All right, let's see what we got here. Slee, Sam Rodriguez, favorite show growing up. Oh, this is good. This is good. I think this is actually easy for me. Growing up, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I don't know. That show just that show roped me in. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, growing up was probably my favorite show. Will Smith, obviously you got Carlton. You got the whole crew. That was arguably my favorite show growing up. Another one, which was very random. I don't know why my parents let me watch this. Married with Children. Al Bundy. The guy had 4 touchdowns in one game for Polk High. 4 touchdowns in one game. Married with Children was another one. Those two shows were kind of like my go-tos. And again, I don't understand how my parents let me watch Married with Children growing up, but that show was freaking hilarious. So I would say those two shows, my favorite shows growing up. As I got older, started watching Actually, this was well out of college or whatever. I started watching Seinfeld a little bit later, so I wasn't watching Seinfeld during that time. But those I would say those would be my two shows. All right, let me see. Let me get a couple more in here. Let's see. Living in diverse LA landscape, what is your favorite area? No question about it. Not even close. I think Pasadena is the best city in LA. And I don't even think it's close. I don't know what to tell you. Now, granted, the only thing that it's not nowhere near the water. That's the only problem with, Pasadena. But Pasadena is phenomenal. Pasadena's got unbelievable. You don't need to leave Pasadena. Somebody can make a trip to LA and just come stay a couple nights in Pasadena, and they'll be very, very happy with their trip to LA because they stayed in Pasadena. I think Pasadena is amazing. Let's see what you got here. Slee, did you hoop in school? I hooped my entire life up until COVID, and then I stopped playing basketball. They shut down all the gyms, and then all of a sudden I was like, all right, I guess I'm done with basketball. And I never went back to it. I don't know why I never went back to it, but I never did. Probably because I'm over the age of 40 and I shouldn't be running up and down a basketball floor anymore. Injuries, you know what I mean? Then you got injuries. I think I turned each one of my ankles 67 times, and I'm like, okay, that should do it. I'm like, I'm never going anywhere near I'm going to stay out on the perimeter. All right, let's get a couple more here. Slee, should I have the fourth cup of coffee? No, you should not. I had a cup of coffee yesterday late in the game. I had a cup of coffee yesterday, and I was just basically saying, it was like midnight yesterday. I'm just sitting around. I'm like, yeah, I can't go to bed. I can't fall asleep. All right, so we got Howland Rays in Pasadena. Travis and I, one time I thought it was a really good idea with Travis when we were doing the show. I said, Trav, we should do the spiciest chicken sandwich from Howland Rays. There's a location near downtown, the Arts District. I can't remember where it is. And we did. We had the spiciest one on air, and we were both jacked up for 2 days. So definitely go to Howland Rays. Just don't get the spiciest sandwich that Howland Rays presents. Let's see what we got here. I got this question before. What's your go-to beer right now? I think I've said this. There's so many good local breweries. And I kind of fall into more of these local breweries down in San Diego. I mentioned Culture Brewing, which is a phenomenal brewery. They got a couple locations down in I think they got one in Manhattan Beach as well. That's a phenomenal beer. Anytime you go to one of these breweries, you grab, they got the 4-pack, 6-pack, something along those lines. Just go throw those in the fridge. I like a lot of the local brews, but I'm predominantly going to do a lager. I'm not an IPA guy. All right, let's see what we got here. That's a good beer as well. Let's see. See if we get one more in here. One or two more in here. Let's see what we get here. Let's see what we got. Mr. Tower Records on Lake in Pasadena. There is a record store. I actually recently bought a record player. First record player I ever bought. I think I was telling you guys I'm a huge reggae fan, so I like getting some of these old school. I'm going to start buying some reggae albums, but I got a record player. There is a record store here. I don't know what I can't think of, and it's on Lake. So there definitely is a record store here. I literally 2 weeks ago bought a record player. So I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. Favorite Lakers era, easy. Shaq and Kobe. No question about it. That will always go down as my favorite era probably my favorite era in the NBA too. The 90s I really, really loved, but Shaq and Kobe to me, that's my favorite era of Laker basketball. And I honestly, I think that was also at a time of my life where just age-wise, you're so invested into whatever your team is. I don't think that's ever going to be beat. I think that, the Powell and Kobe days were awesome. That ain't Shaq and Kobe. It's just not. So that's going to be that is my favorite era. Shaq was as dominant as he was. You had Rick Fox and Robert Horry and Derek Fisher and, go down the list of some of the different players that were contributing for the Lakers. That's my favorite era of Lakers basketball. Let's see what we got here. Howlin' Rays or Dave's Hot Chicken? I'd go Howlin' Rays. Howlin' Rays in Chinatown. That's what it is. Definitely OG. All right. I think we're good. I think we are good. I think we got it in today. Okay, so let me just kind of give everyone a quick idea the next couple of days, what it's looking like. It looks like I'm going to have a Thunder, somebody who covers the Thunder coming up on Friday. So after game 1. Tomorrow's going to be a busy day. Tomorrow I'm going to do my regular show at 8 a.m. I'm going to have Sammy come on. I'm basically making this guy study the NBA Finals, and he's going to come on and break it down for us. So looking forward to have Sammy on tomorrow. And then tomorrow after the NBA Finals, I'm going to go live. So I'm going to try that. It's not something I've done, but I want to do, and it's been a suggestion from some people. So we'll go live after the NBA Finals. I think it probably exposes the channel to some new people as well, and obviously trying to grow the channel as much as I can. So tomorrow we'll do the show live at 8 a.m., then we'll go live after the NBA Finals game 1 between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And then Friday we'll come back with a show at 8 a.m. as well. And most likely have somebody on that covers the Oklahoma City Thunder to kind of break down the NBA Finals. All right, my people. That is all I got for today. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being a part of the show. Really appreciate you guys, obviously hanging out as we are in the offseason here. It doesn't really matter. There's still a lot of good things to talk about. So appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And we'll go from there. Thank you, everybody.